Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. There were no cameras in the room, no live feeds, no reporters snapping photos from the gallery. But what happened inside that federal courtroom? What was said behind those tightly guarded doors sent shockwaves through every corner of Hollywood. Jamie Foxx, one of the most respected and versatile performers of our time, had just taken the stand. And according to those present, he was not acting. His hands trembled, his voice cracked. And then without warning, he broke down sobbing and screaming in front of the jury as he recounted what he saw one fateful night inside Sean Diddy Combs' mansion. Leaked notes from the court transcript, combined with detailed sketches and eyewitness reports, paint a horrifying picture. This wasn't the same Jamie Foxx. The public knew the confident, charming, unshakable entertainer. This was a man haunted. And as his words poured out, those in the courtroom sat frozen. It wasn't just what he saw. It was how it was hidden, how everything seemed orchestrated, protected, and how for years no one dared to speak up. Jamie Foxx's connection to Sean Diddy. Combs was well documented over the years. In public, they often shared laughs, exchanged friendly jabs during award show after parties, and even posed for pictures that screamed luxury, brotherhood, and power. But according to leaked notes from the federal court's first week, that brotherhood was nothing more than a mask, a carefully curated illusion that crumbled the night Jamie accepted an invitation to spend, the night at Diddy's infamous mansion. In his emotional testimony, Jamie started by explaining the relationship. We all wanted to be part of the circle. He said Diddy's house was where the music lived, the deals, the energy. It was like entering a palace of influence. But what Jamie didn't realize, according to his words under oath, was that some parties weren't meant for celebration. They were meant for initiation. That night, Foxx recounted being led into a private wing of the mansion after an evening of heavy drinking and luxury lounging. There were people I didn't recognize, people who weren't artists, producers, or executives, people who looked uncomfortable. His voice reportedly dropped to a whisper. They told me to stay to relax, that Diddy had a surprise. He described the atmosphere shift, the way the lights dimmed, the laughter faded, and the guests began separating into smaller, secretive rooms. One of Diddy's aides allegedly escorted Foxx to a soundproofed theater inside the mansion where a video had already been queued up. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. They said this is where we bond. What followed, Foxx said, left him mentally wrecked for years. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. I didn't know if it was real or staged, but I know what I felt. My stomach dropped. I got up, I wanted to leave, but the doors were locked. They told me to watch. Said everyone who's somebody has been through this. His account sent chills through the courtroom, according to a reporter who had spoken to someone present. Foxx reportedly paused, took a long breath, and said, I never asked to see that, and I've spent every day since trying to forget it. The judge, according to transcripts, called for a 5-minute recess to allow Foxx to recover his composure. After the break, Foxx returned to the witness stand with red eyes and shaking hands. The courtroom fell silent again, and what followed was described as a damning breakdown of Hollywood's most whispered secret, the protection of power at all costs. Jamie stated, when I tried to leave that night, they handed me a glass of something. Said it would help me calm down. I didn't drink it. I just said I needed to go. I remember Diddy looking at me cold, like he knew what I saw but didn't care, like it was part of the plan. But the emotional damage wasn't what hit the courtroom hardest. It was the aftermath. Foxx claimed that in the days that followed, calls started coming in. They weren't threats, exactly. Just reminders to keep quiet, to stay close. They offered me a deal. An NDA wrapped in a check. 7 figures. He refused, but that's when. According to him, the pushback started. Foxx testified that for years afterward, He experienced a slow decline in major offers, unexplained delays in project funding, and ghosting from producers who had once called him a star. It was a freeze-out quiet, but it was real. And I knew why. The courtroom transcript quoted him saying, "I watched careers disappear. People who asked questions just vanished from the conversation, not dead, just erased." He then went on to describe how other celebrities had confided in him over the years, people who had similar experiences but were too afraid to speak. "You think I'm the only one. You think I'm brave. I'm not. I'm just tired." A gasp reportedly echoed through the gallery when Foxx mentioned by name 3 other well-known entertainers who he claimed were at that mansion during similar parties. The names were redacted in the official court transcript, but multiple outlets have suggested one was a Grammy-winning rapper, another a beloved late-night host, and the third an actress known for activism. Foxx closed this part of his testimony by saying, "We wear smiles, suits, sunglasses, but behind it, a lot of us are broken. Some things you can't unsee." The courtroom grew darker in tone as Jamie Foxx leaned forward to explain the most chilling part of his experience. Not just what he saw that night at Diddy's mansion, but what he learned afterward. What began as a disturbing and surreal encounter spiraled into something deeper, more calculated, and far more terrifying than he'd ever imagined. This wasn't just about a strange party or a few off-color incidents. It was about systematic control, leverage, and blackmail. Jaime's tone shifted from emotional to analytical as he spoke about the existence of a hidden archive, an alleged vault of digital recordings stored within a private encrypted server somewhere on Diddy's estate. He hadn't seen the room himself, but he claimed that several insiders, including a former house manager and 2 security guards who have since disappeared from the public eye, confirmed its existence. They described it as a surveillance nerve center complete with monitors, secured hard drives, and locked cabinets that only a select few had access to. "They kept everything," Jaime said, pausing to let the words settle in the air. "Not just clips of people partying. They filmed things they knew no one wanted public. They filmed it without consent. Hidden cameras, some in bedrooms, some in hallways, bathrooms. People didn't know. You'd think it's just a wild night. But what you didn't know was someone was always recording." He explained that the collection wasn't just a hobby or some trophy room, it was, in his words, a currency of secrets. Footage of celebrities, politicians, executives, athletes. Jaime mentioned that many of them had no idea they'd been filmed in compromising positions. Some intoxicated, others engaged in what could only be described as disturbing or non-consensual behavior. "It wasn't just about watching," he added. "It was about owning people, making sure no one ever turned against them." Insurance policies. Foxx recounted a moment a few months after his visit to the mansion. A package arrived at his production office. No return address, just his name in sharp black marker. Inside a flash drive, and on it, a distorted video. Grainy footage of the theater room where Jaime had been that night. His face, his reactions caught on hidden cameras. The angle clearly indicated it wasn't filmed with his knowledge. No audio, just his expressions as he watched whatever played on the screen. The final frame on the drive was a black screen with a single phrase, "Just remember." Foxx said he stared at that screen for over an hour. "He didn't sleep that night. I thought it was a warning. He said I was being told, 'We see you, we own your silence.' And I'll be honest, after that, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't know who to trust. Every time I saw another story in the headlines, someone else being accused or someone mysteriously backing away from the industry, I wondered, were they filmed too?" He alleged that these archives had been weaponized multiple times, used to shut down lawsuits, silence accusers, even force endorsements or public support from people who had privately cut ties with Diddy. Some of the people you see out there defending him. Jaime said they're not defending him because they like him. They're defending him because they're scared. Because they don't want their footage to surface. One of the most damning moments in the testimony came when Jaime spoke of a late-night phone call he received from a well-known actress who had also stayed at the mansion. He didn't reveal her name in court, but described her as someone America viewed as a sweetheart. She was crying. She said she had received a video of herself passed out with someone hovering over her, someone she didn't recognize. She was panicking. She didn't know if it had gone further. She didn't know if anyone would believe her, and I didn't know what to tell her. Foxx admitted. The judge called for a pause after this segment reportedly concerned about the emotional toll being taken on Foxx, who had grown increasingly distressed. Before stepping down from the stand for a break, Jaime issued one last chilling comment. They don't just collect secrets, they manufacture silence. They build a cage made of your worst moments. And then they hold the key. By this point, the mood in the courtroom had shifted entirely. This wasn't just about one man's crimes, it was about the possibility of a sprawling system built on manipulation, fear, and control. And the longer Jaime spoke, the more it became clear Diddy's empire, if true, wasn't just constructed from music or business deals, it was built on leverage. The kind that doesn't just ruin careers, the kind that ends lives. When court resumed after a short recess, Jamie Foxx returned to the stand visibly shaken but more resolute. What he said next would leave the courtroom in stunned silence. He recounted how weeks after receiving the flash drive, two men approached him outside a restaurant in Los Angeles, dressed like security or bodyguards. They didn't identify themselves. One simply handed him a phone, said he wants to talk, and stepped back. On the other end of the line was Diddy. The voice was calm, collected. Diddy didn't threaten Jaime directly, but what he said chilled him to his core. I hope you're not planning on saying anything you'll regret, my man. Diddy reportedly said, that's the kind of thing that can mess up legacies. You're a legend, Jamie, don't lose that over something that isn't your business. It wasn't the words alone. It was the implication that Diddy had eyes on him, that he could reach him anywhere, anytime. Jaime testified that after the call, he found himself constantly looking over his shoulder. He changed his phone, canceled appearances, and began moving with private security. He said he believed it was no coincidence that, shortly after this encounter, a story surfaced in a gossip outlet implying Jaime was involved in a scandal. He insisted was fabricated. It was a warning shot. He said it was like he was telling me, we can build a lie around you just as fast as we can destroy you with the truth. In court, Jaime explained how Diddy's world wasn't just about celebrity and wealth. It was about surveillance, silence, and power. He described how guests at parties were often required to hand over their phones ostensibly for privacy reasons, but after what he had experienced, Jaime said he believed those phones were cloned. He claimed insiders told him that messages, contacts, even voicemails were copied and archived. People think the danger was in what they did at those parties, Jaime said, but the real danger was in what they took from you, your data, your voice, your fear. A prosecutor presented evidence of NDAs signed by dozens of high-profile guests who attended parties at Diddy's estates. These documents were more aggressive than typical confidentiality agreements. Some included clauses that warned against expressing negative experiences or accounts in public settings, and Jaime confirmed that he had been asked to sign something similar. He refused, but that he said was when everything changed. His brand endorsements began to fall through. A film project he was developing was suddenly dropped by its distributor. Studios stopped returning calls. It was like I became radioactive overnight, Jaime said. I wasn't blacklisted for doing something wrong. I was blacklisted for not playing along. The court grew increasingly captivated and horrified. As Jamie delved deeper into what he called the mechanics of the mansion, he began to describe specific rooms he was shown during his overnight stay at Diddy's compound, rooms that didn't appear on the blueprints. He recalled being led through a hallway behind a bookcase which opened into a surveillance control room staffed by two quiet men who never made eye contact. Jaime said this wasn't a tour. It felt like an intimidation tactic. He testified that one of the men showed him a monitor with feeds from throughout the house. Bedrooms, spas, private lounges. I didn't ask to see anything, Jaime clarified, but they wanted me to know that they had everything he asked, who had access, to the recordings. The response was simple, only him referring to Diddy. Later that night, Jaime was told that his bedroom was down a different hallway from where the other guests were staying. He thought it was odd. The room was opulent but cold. No, windows, cameras clearly visible in the corners. I didn't feel like a guest. Jaime said I felt like a suspect in an interrogation room. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. Around 2 a.m., he heard faint music and laughter. He stepped out to see a procession of individuals in robes walking through the hallway toward the theater room. Jaime followed at a distance and witnessed what he could only describe as a ritualistic gathering. Guests were being handed drinks, some blindfolded, some filmed. At the center of the room, Diddy stood orchestrating everything with a smile. What disturbed Jaime the most was the presence of handlers, men who weren't guests, but facilitators. They kept track of everyone, ensured the cameras rolled, whispered in ears. Jaime believed they weren't just filming, they were documenting behavior for leverage. When the event ended, Jaime went back to his room but found the door ajar inside. Everything was untouched, except for a photo of him and Diddy from years ago, now sitting on the nightstand. He swore it hadn't been there before. On the back, a handwritten note, Brotherhood. In his final day of testimony, Jaime's emotional shield fully broke. His voice cracked as he described a visit he received months later from an FBI agent. This agent, who requested anonymity and had reportedly been investigating Diddy for years, reached out unofficially. According to Jaime, the agent claimed there were over 30 sealed complaints involving misconduct, trafficking, and extortion connected to Diddy and his associates, but none had made it past grand juries. Jaime asked why. The agent reportedly said, "He's protected top-level connections. People in places you wouldn't believe." That's when Jaime dropped the biggest bombshell of the trial. He claimed the agent told him there were sealed documents implicating a former U.S. president in attending at least one of Diddy's exclusive fundraisers, one where surveillance tapes were believed to be recorded. Jaime made it clear he didn't know if anything illegal happened, but he said it was no coincidence that high-ranking individuals had avoided association with the investigation. Jaime said. The agent warned him, "If you go public, you won't just be going up against Diddy, you'll be going up against the whole machine." He closed his testimony, with tears streaming down his face, pleading not just for justice, but for the public to understand. This isn't about revenge, it's about stopping something that's been hidden for too long. This is bigger than music, bigger than me. And if something happens to me after this, I want the world to know I told the truth. As Jamie Foxx continued his testimony, he detailed a chilling night during his visit that he called the blackout incident. It wasn't just metaphorical. He described how at around 2 a.m. the entire estate plunged into sudden darkness. At first, Jaime thought it was a power outage, but the timing felt off. The music had stopped abruptly. The hallway lights blinked twice, and then silence. He remembered stepping into the hallway where the air had turned cold, not just from the air conditioning, but from a tension that wrapped around the house like a storm cloud. Everyone froze. Jaime said, the vibe shifted. No one was laughing. No one was talking. It was like they'd been through this. Before a tall man in a suit, whom Jaime described as too serious for a party, emerged from one of the rooms and said, "No phones, no cameras, everyone back inside." Jaime, confused and unnerved, returned to his room. But curiosity got the better of him. He crept down the hallway, peeking through a cracked door where strange sounds echoed from within, whispers. Something metallic clanging, and then a scream, a muffled, "One male." He wouldn't say who he saw, but he did confirm that what he witnessed was not a party game and not consensual. He saw shadows, moving figures standing in a circle, and what looked like someone being restrained. He described a woman walking, calmly through the room with a small notepad marking something down. Then she made eye contact with him through the crack in the door. She didn't scream. She didn't alert anyone. She just smiled, then shut the door in his face. Jaime fell back stunned. That's when I knew. He told the jury this wasn't a home. This was a theater, a stage where people were made into props. Jaime's voice cracked as he recalled the final part of his stay, the upstairs level that was strictly off limits. At the party, guests were told not to go upstairs unless invited. But Jaime, trying to find a restroom and avoiding a crowd in the hallway, accidentally opened the wrong door and found himself at the bottom of a staircase. It was dimly lit with red emergency bulbs, and a faint hum came from above. He swore he saw two people at the top of the stairs whispering. One looked directly at him. "You lost?" the man asked coldly. Jaime apologized and turned back, but not before catching a glimpse of what looked like a heavy black curtain or sheet hanging in the hallway. And under it, faint white light blinking. I knew that was where they kept the good stuff, he said sarcastically. Not good like fun. Good like evidence secrets control. Later, a friend told him the upstairs level was where the meetings happened. Jaime asked, "What kind of meetings?" The response, "The kind where people give up something to get something." That line haunted him for years. As the courtroom neared the end of Jamie Foxx's testimony, the prosecutor asked the question everyone had been waiting to hear. "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" Jaime looked down, took a deep breath, and began, "I was scared," he admitted. "Not for my career. Forget that I was scared for my life, for my family, for anyone close to me. You don't understand the reach this man has. It's not just about music. It's about silence. He makes people disappear, if not physically, then from relevance, from the industry, from protection. Ask anyone who's tried." He recounted several instances over the years where people who had tried to expose or challenge Diddy were met with immediate consequences. Lawsuits, shutdowns, surveillance, or unexplained firings. "You get iced out," he said. "They don't need to kill you, they just erase you." But when the stories began to pile up, Cassie's testimony, the staff leaks, the federal investigation, Jaime knew it was time. "If I stayed quiet, now, I was complicit, and I couldn't live with that anymore." His final words in the courtroom shook everyone. Everyone thinks Hollywood is built on dreams, but the truth is, it's built on secrets. And this man, he collected more secrets than anyone, I just hope. Speaking mine helps break whatever spell he had on all of us. The judge called for a recess, and as Jaime walked back to his seat, reporters noted that even some jurors wiped tears from their eyes. The silence that followed was not just from the court. It was a silence of reckoning, the kind that comes when a celebrity's world cracks wide open, and the truth has nowhere left to hide.